Welcome back and thanks for staying with us here on Beyond the Lockdown. We already know, I've refreshed your memories on how campaigning will be like. It's been like that for the past elections. How would it be this time around? And that's what we are looking at, campaigning amidst the pandemic. We are not in ordinary times. And like I said, we'll have the organizers of the two main political parties. We have Samir Uku, who was the national organizer of the NPP, joining me in the studio. We'll also have via Zoom, Joshua Hamidu Akamba, who is the NDC's national organizer. Dr. H.S. Kanku, who's also a communication strategist, will be joining us on the phone, on via Zoom, I beg your pardon. And then Dr. Michael Owusu will also be joining us via Zoom. So I have all of them via Zoom now. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you very much for your time here on Beyond the Lockdown.
Thank you.
Well, so we'll rectify the sounds on Zoom shortly, but I'll start with you, Mr. Samiruku. Thank you so much for your time here. I know you've been going round with the registration exercise and all. How is it going so far?
Well, not bad. And let me say a very good evening to your cherished viewers and those listening to you via your radio and also on the internet as well. So far, it's been good. We've had effective 6 days. The good, the bad, and the ugly, but it keeps getting better. And I'm particularly thrilled that every day we see an improvement of the situation. The first day, as Joy rightly reported, we had issues of people not observing social distancing and also some not also observing these old face masks and other protocols at all. Be as it may, the second day was good. The third day got better. And so far, I think the Electoral Commission is also managing the situation well. For us as political parties, it's important that for us as major stakeholders in the process, we keep encouraging people that, look, we can also go through this process successfully and also come out healthy and not contracting this deadly virus. It won't be easy, but we're going through the process. Every day is a risk, not just for the registration. I'm sure many countries around the world, South Korea, Burundi, Suriname, Tokyo just had their elections for mayor. You also had Croatia going through the process, Malawi, Ivory Coast compiling a new voters register. This is all because the world has shifted gear. We all understand that this virus, this unwanted guest has come to stay and is going to be with us for some time. So we need to take measures that preserves lives and for us to also more or less go through these processes as well. So it hasn't been easy, but I think that we just have to do with it and then go through it and still come out looking healthy.
Well, now that you've mentioned countries like Burundi, for instance, we all know how it ended. We lost the former president amidst the campaigning and all right after it. It's not being totally confirmed if he died out of COVID, but reports suggest so.
I cited these countries, but strangely, you only picked Burundi out of it. I mentioned that of Ivory Coast.
Of course, you mentioned other countries. I just picked that.
I mentioned South Korea. I mentioned Croatia. I mentioned Suriname. And I also mentioned Malawi. And also just today or so, Croatia also going through the same process. So you cannot simply say that because you have this pandemic, life will have to come to a stop. We need to take measures that will also still secure us when we are out. Look, you leaving your homes for the studios of multimedia today was a risk. So you have two options. Either you go for risk avoidance or risk reduction. Risk avoidance means that you have to stay in the comfort of your bed, not make any movement at all for the rest of the month, for the rest of the year. That is risk avoidance. But for risk reduction, you're coming out, you know that you need to wear face mask, you need to sanitize your hands, get your hands washed under running water with soap so that you reduce the risk.
So did you choose risk reduction during your primaries, for instance?
I'm sure you chose risk reduction today as well.
Did your supporters choose that during your primaries, for instance? Because it appears your party is worse hit by the number of cases that we've recorded in your party, for instance. We are told about the president, we're told he's in self-isolation as we speak because somebody close, at least one person close to him in his circle has tested positive. As a result, he has to do that. We're told about your campaign coordinator, Mr. Peter McMeno. We know about Carlos Ahinkra. A number of your parties. Do you know the figure? Do you know how many?
The numbers you have mentioned, I'll just go through the list you mentioned. I'm not sure these lists adds up to about 10. from the figures you are giving me.
So I'm asking you how many there
are. In excess of 20,000 people getting infected. Unless you want to paint a picture that out of the 20,000, the NPP accounts for 19,000.
I never said that. I'm asking how many because I've mentioned your campaign coordinator. You've not disputed that. I've told you about Carlos Ahinkra, who's also mentioned that yes, he has it, and as a result, there are calls for his prosecution as well, and even the party, withdrawing his race and all.
I think during our primaries, let me put these issues in proper perspective. During the NPP's primaries, for us as a party, we provided Veronica bucket, hand sanitizers and all. It still has to do with the generality of our people, not just NPP supporters, but the masses of our people. I'm talking about the Ghanaian people. That's why every day, day in, day out, we need to constantly hammer that people must observe these protocols to protect themselves and protect the lives of others. So clearly, during our primaries, I also had the opportunity of being in a station in northern Ghana, and they went through these processes successfully. Again, I want to also clearly refute the assertion that it looks like the NPP is biggest.
Badly hit, yes.
The fact that you are mentioning the big names doesn't mean that this disease, this deadly novel virus is pro-NPP or is pro-NDC.
That's not what you're color. You're saying you are badly hit by it because of the decisions you took. Your primaries, acclamation and all.
I reject any position that will put this whole argument in the context that this particular party is hit seriously or not. I can confidently tell you that from our brothers on the other side, they've also suffered some few victims here and there. But this disease shouldn't be colored at all. We need to fight this pandemic with the oneness that we can and muster the courage to also confront it when we come face to face with it. And constantly, we need to also adhere to these to these protocols, as the health authorities have made it clear. And this year's campaign is not going to be like the one we witnessed in 2016. And I think it's going to be a bit boring as compared to what we've had in the past, the 2008, the 2012, the 2016. And rightly so, because our lives have changed. Now, you no longer can have a situation where candidates can move from place to hug, shake residents and all. That will be going against the protocols. And I'm sure the citizens also understand that times have changed and we need to also change. Traditionally, it is difficult to change. But when progress demands change, there must be that change for us to also preserve our lives and preserve the lives of others as well.
Now, has the party taken any decision on the calls on Carlos Ahinkra, for instance? I'm sure you've been talking about it.
What are the calls for?
Because there were calls that his candidature should be withdrawn, for instance. I missed calls for prosecution as well. Is there a decision that the party has taken on him, even though he's resigned?
Well, Carlos is an appointee. He has resigned, and we commend him for resigning. Let me also be clear that when it comes to issues of primaries, parliamentary issues, it's the National Executive Committee. They have the powers to also take such decisions. And I don't think the NPP, we have congregated to look at that matter. What I do know is that constantly we'll also be advising our candidates across the country to also adhere to these strict protocols as outlined by government and health authorities, so that we don't have such instances. What Carlos did, for me, was an error of judgment, and it was in flagrant disregard to lay down protocols. And I'm happy that he took the bull by the horn and also resigned from his position because he had become inconsistent with what government had outlined for all of us to follow. And again, my biggest worry is that especially in instances where now there seems to be a trap by the media, set by the media. Yes, there seems to be a trap. And this same media is fighting stigmatization. But then it's the same medium that will be first to point out this one has COVID. This one has COVID.
Is that not a way of fighting stigmatization as well? If you come out to say that you have it?
Because if you're encouraging people to go and test, when the people test and you are demanding their results, and when they also give you their results, then now they become more or less in the eyes of the public. I'll give you an example. Ministry of Health recently, they gave people two options, workers, staff there, whether they will go for the testing or they will isolate for 2 weeks. Many of the staff there decided to go for the 2 weeks quarantine. or 2 weeks staying at home than to go for the test because of the fear of stigmatization. In multimedia, you've had cases of people testing positive for the novel coronavirus, right?
Which we announced publicly.
Well, but you only announce the numbers. You don't announce that Mr. A, B, and C.
I'm sure you heard some of my colleagues coming out to say.
It's only when they recover.
No.
That is only when they recover.
No, Mr.
I remember so well that apart from Winston, and then I also had that of Gary as well. But the good news is that when there seemed to be a whole considerable level of agitation to ask people, look, you have tested positive, so we don't want to see you and see it. It goes against the very spirit in which we're fighting against the stigmatization. And that is what scares me the most in this whole fight against the pandemic. Well,
let's go over to Zoom now. I think everything is rectified at this point. Mr. Joshua Hamidu Akamba, his line has now been rectified, so he's joined us back on the phone or via Zoom. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Akamba. So you've been going on the rounds. Shortly, we'll hand over to our viewers and our listeners to sending their questions as well, and we'll get into them shortly and then hear from Dr. H.C. Kanku and of course Dr. Michael Owusu. But Mr. Akamba, I should say, you've just returned from your rounds during the registration exercise. How has it been? I'll take your words quickly on that.
Good evening and good evening to your chair. We want to wish every patient with coronavirus 19. We want to wish them speedy recovery and ask God guidance on them on their life. Madam, it's very chaotic.
Unfortunately, Mr. Akamba, my apologies. We'll have to rectify the connection to you. It's not in good state, so we'll have to correct that, and then I'll come back to you shortly on that. My apologies, but it looks like we have a technical challenge to Mr. Akamba. We'll definitely rectify it, and we'll give you the opportunity to also have your say on this program. But let me bring in Dr. H.C. Kanku and, of course, Dr. Michael Owusu. Dr. Sikanku, so we are in a period that we can't do anything about. Registration is ongoing. Election 2020 will happen. So definitely campaigning of a sort will also happen. But the issue is about how it will be done such that people will be safe and alive to vote in election 2020. I'm sure you've been looking back on it. How different will campaigning be amidst this pandemic that we are faced with?
Thank you very much, MF. Good evening to Samuel Uku and to the rest of the guests. Good evening to your viewers as well. Yes, you're right. We are in uncertain times. We are in uncharted waters. And every situation demands its appropriate response. This is unusual. This is unprecedented. But at the same time, what it means is that it calls for unusual and unprecedented responses in a very uncertain time. Rather unfortunate that all of this is happening against the backdrop of a novel virus, against the backdrop of fear, anxiety, against the backdrop of death, disease, and uncertainty. But at the same time, the campaigns are going on. And so the question that you rightly asked, what can be done to make sure that we still engage in the kind of democratic exercise that we are expected to do. If you look around the world, and it's very interesting that there are elections going on in the United States, in India, in other parts of the world, and the candidates are finding so many different ways to get to their constituents. At the end of the day, I believe what we have to remember is that political campaigns are the center of an election exercise. They are one of the main institutions or exercises around which an electoral activity revolves. The campaigns are an important chance for parties, for citizens to reflect on the country, to reflect on what has gone on over the past 4 years, and to ask of themselves if they do want the same government to continue or they want a new course. Campaigns are moments when we learn about the political culture of a country. What do they care about? What are they willing to tolerate? What kind of issues do they have problems with? And what kind of vision do they want the country to have moving forward? So very important, and that is why it is critical that the campaigns still find a way to promulgate an exercise that really serves the democratic regime that we've signed up to. If you do comparative analysis, right, and you look at the best practices across the world, most of the campaigns are trying as much as possible to serve the basic principles of political campaign or democratic campaigns, which means that you have to engage your citizens. You have to inform them of your policies and your plans and your programs. You have to hear from them. What are their problems and what are their concerns? You have to be able, and the media also has a role to make sure that that platform is provided for critical, in-depth, and intelligent discussions of the major issues of the day, the manifestos, the policies, and the program, so that together we can be able to fashion out the kind of democracy and future that we want. So as far as that is concerned, there are so many things that can be done. And I'm sure by now we all know that the online or digital space will play a very important or pivotal role in this election like never before. Of course, 2012, 2016 saw an upsurge of social media use, upsurge of online mechanisms. But this time around, it's even going to be further heightened by the fact that political campaigns are now going to be able to move out there, go onto the ground. The rallies, of course, have been outlawed, so there will not be any rallies. And so there are different things that can be done. And if you compare it to the US, and I'm not saying we should do exactly what they are doing, but we are just trying to do international best practices and comparisons. You look at Donald Trump and you look at Joe Biden. Donald Trump has defied the odds. He says he's going to go out there and campaign irrespective of the virus. So a week or two ago, he was in Oklahoma to go and campaign. Of course, we know that was a fiasco because of the attendance. 2 weeks after that, Herman Cain and a couple of other people who were at the campaign tested positive for the virus. Joe Biden, the opponent, has done what you call the bunker strategy. He said he's not going anywhere, so he's hiding in his bunker, okay, and inside observing the rules. And he's just gone about once or twice. He's wearing the nose mask as opposed to his opponent who's not in support of the nose mask. So these are different ways people are doing it. And then you come to Ghana as well. We have the NDC as the major part, one of the major parties, and of course the incumbent MPP. You do an analysis of the John Mahama campaign, and you realize that he's already doing a bit of this. He has the Facebook Live events. He has the let's chat or let's talk, and this is something that he calls people on Zoom and has conversations with them. I just visited his website. It's pretty current as well. And so he's found different. He's done quite a number of videos as well, and he's very active on social media. So that's that. We also have the MPP as well. They do have their website. They have different stuff that they are doing, but of course they have the advantage of incumbency. They have the advantage of incumbency, which means that there are various indirect ways in which we are able to hear from the party or the government. Whenever the president goes out to give an address, of course, we know he's performing a national exercise. But from the perspective of political campaigns, we know that the role of the bullet pulpit, the presidency sets the agenda. So when people see him every time, people see him in control, it reinforces his leadership abilities. And so that is the advantage of incumbency that he has right there. But I got to say that at the end of the day, it is very important that, and we can go further ahead if you want, but there are so many other ways in which people can engage the citizens so that we don't leave anybody behind as far as this particular campaign is exercised, that we don't lose, the richness and the weight of what a campaign contributes to a democracy in contributing to an effective, informed, and well-educated citizenry who will be able to make very well-informed judgments or decisions come voting day. So I'll leave it at here for now. If you have any further questions, I'm happy to take
media. And my thinking is about the grassroots at this point. And thankfully, the national organizers of the two parties are here, and they'll tell us what plans they have in terms of reaching the persons at the grassroots, and which is of key importance to all these political parties. But let's talk about the science of it. I'm sure Mr. Akamba is joining us back on the line. But quickly, let me go to you, Dr. Michael Owusu. The science of it, knowing what you've seen so far, you've raised concerns about what we've seen, especially with the registration exercise and, of course, the ended parliamentary primaries of the ruling NPP. They've described some of the things that happened as unfortunate and hoping that it would be rectified going forward. But the signs of it, looking at campaigning, what should we know? What should we be looking out for across board for all the political parties and supporters alike?
Yeah, good evening, and then good evening to your panelists, Dr. Sikanku, Joshua, and then Samuel Uku as well. So it's good to understand that whatever we do, we must be guided by the public health measures and also information just across Africa and the world as well. The WHO have recently made a pronouncement that we are getting to the worst form of the pandemic, which means many people are still susceptible and many people are likely to be infected. They also reminded us somewhere in early June that it took about 98 days for Africa to record 100,000 cases, but only took 18 days for Africa to double the number to 200,000 cases. And the number of days that, the numbers double is reducing. So I'm sure now it's going to be about 10 days to get about 400,000 cases. In Africa, we have about over 11,000 deaths. And if you look at Africa, South Africa is now driving these virus numbers. It's over 180,000 infections with close to about 3,000 deaths. In Western Africa, Ghana and Nigeria are the ones driving this. Nigeria has over 600 deaths with quite a significant number of infections, over 28,000 infections. So the epidemic curve, and it seems to be changing from what we used to know before. And it looks like Africa is in the acceleration phase than where we started from. We started at a slow pace. Things were quite normal. Most of them were symptomatic. But where we are now, things are moving very fast, which will mean that if we don't manage things very well and we don't control things very well, it is likely that between now and perhaps the next couple of months, a lot of people become infected and a lot of people are likely to suffer from this virus. And talking about elections and campaign, it has its own advantages and disadvantages, maybe the benefits and the risks and the opportunities. We have about 275 constituencies across different parts of Ghana with about 33,000 polling stations. And the political parties have very good structures. These are large social organizations with structures to the lowest level. And they have leaders that are able to speak to their own people, communicate to them in the way that they have to understand. So if you look at the opportunities, we have been trying over a couple of months since 12th of March that we recorded our first case through the National Commission on Civic Education to educate people. Public health have done their part. We virologists and science people have been talking, but the information does not seem to getting down well with the people. So perhaps with the political parties coming on board, the opportunity could be that they could use this large social structure that they have been using over the years to now drive this information down to the people. And this is where leadership becomes very, very important. The kind of message that they give to the people, identifying with the people understanding what is it that we are facing and what is it that we are likely to go through, sharing in the pain of people. Many have lost their relatives, very close ones. People are in pain. This is the time for us to understand how well this could be communicated. And for me, I'm looking at each of the parties, all the opposition parties, government, coming out with a strategic document for engaging electorates. This has to be well written, well laid out, and then you should be able to come out with electoral events that could be possible could pose risks to infections across different places. For instance, one of them could be, you could look at polling rallies, voter registration, your polling agents, and ballot casting, holding ballot papers, arranging ballot papers, and ask yourself, what are the risk factors?
Okay.
There could be risk of transmission of respiratory droplets. And then you also ask yourself, what are the mitigation actions you are willing to do as for your party? Is it that you provide good social distancing, you draw some tapes, you will educate the people, you give them sanitizers, you give them free masks, you do what are you going to do? So this has to be put in a framework, a document where they must have this, share this with their electorates, educate them to understand properly what this means, and also have to have a communication strategy which will inform the people exactly what they want to know and what they want to hear. I think that when you have this well crafted, not just doing things as general, but then have a written document, sharing with them and educating them according to the plan, I think this is going to help a lot. I'm talking about opportunities to drive home the message of adhering to the prevention measures and doing what is right.
Thankfully, Mr. Akamba's line has been rectified. He's a key part of this conversation. Welcome back, Mr. Akamba. So I was asking you about your tour and how it's been. But let me fast forward. I know that there's a NEC meeting coming up tomorrow. Hopefully, we will hear the announcement of a running mate, for instance. But I'll quickly take your views on what you experienced on the ground whilst monitoring the voter registration exercise.
Good evening to your cherished viewers. And then again, to wish all our compatriots who are on admission on the issues of C-19 well, and that they get back to us soon. NFR has been chaotic, especially moving into the rural communities where the education is not going down well with our people in the rural areas. And social distancing, even the electoral officers themselves. At a point, you just have to start educating the electoral officers as to what they have to do. And so it's been chaotic. And I'm sure that if government has to actually ask the Minister of Health to go on and do testing after the exercise, I would not be able to tell where this country will be heading to in respect of C-19. Your reporters might just have to be reporting to you what is happening in many of our rural areas where I have been there for a couple of days and returning back just today. So it's not been good at all. It's not been fair to the people of this country when already we have an existing register. And the fact that government will still want to hold on to power, thinking that what they would have to do is to put the Ghanaian through this kind of pain, it's something that beats my imagination. So it's not good. I'm not a happy man going to see. And even in Accra, where we have a lot of education, you have seen what is happening at the police centers, the registration centers. So even in Accra, then you go down to the rural areas where people have little education. NFR it's not a good experience at all to see what is happening.
So knowing what you know and what you've seen, you've described it as not a good experience at all. Do you have a plan in terms of campaigning? Because it looks like you would have to be part of the election 2020. So what's your plan in terms of campaigning amidst the situation that we are faced with?
Unfortunately, NFR, you are telling me to tell you as to what our strategy is, and which I will be unable to do. Politics is also has to do with strategy and the plans that you have to be able to get to the masses. So if you ask me now to tell you what my plans are, I'm going to get down to the people and I'm going to be dealing with the people. I would not be able to answer to that because I don't have the permission of the campaign structure to tell what our plans are and how we intend getting to the people. But if you ask me, what should government be doing by now to see what is losing? I think that our people need more education. We need to send people around to be able to enforce the social distancing protocols. That would be what will help all of us. If not, now the government has said we should stop testing, we should stop going into details. Imagine how many people have been infected by my own brother, Carlos Ayunkwa. So, I would say that NFR, we need to adopt a measure, or the EC need to put up some measures to be able to control what is happening on the ground, and that that's what I think that we can do to help ourselves.
So we know that the EC has put in place some measures. They've mentioned, for instance, that if you're not wearing a mask, you can't register. I was not asking you to give me your strategy in terms of your campaigning, but as a party, what role are you going to play? You've talked about government educating people, for instance, on social distancing. You ought to have a plan also in place in terms of how people are going to adhere to the safety protocols so that people will be alive to vote for the NDC, for instance, in election 2020.
Obviously, like I said, that when I went to the ground there, we did discuss that. I think that what we should be looking at is how to educate our people on using the nose mask, the face mask, using sanitizer, and providing this Veronica bucket in most of these communities. That is what is going to be helping us. But when you even go there, what I saw is that we have Veronica buckets, we have some people that have sanitizers that don't think that they should be even using it. What we need to do is to actually be strict on enforcing the laws.
Okay.
Very, very strict. That's what I think that we have to do. The EC has to put up a mechanism because we need our people alive. We will do our best. We will try talking to our people. I mean, what I tried doing was to educate most of our people as to what to do. But as soon as you turn away, you just some few meters, you see it happening in your face. And it's a bit difficult. I mean, this particular registration issue is totally uncalled for. I mean, we're going to put people through this and put them through the voting system again. I think that is seriously uncalled for. We cannot endanger the lives of our people like this, and which obviously the NPP is then doing. So they should find a way to be able to help us solve the problem, because they are in the race of government. Already, the figures that you and I are aware of are being massaged. We cannot tell from today whether the cases that we are saying that they've been able to come up are actually the figures that is happening. And I tell you, just let
you say figures are being massaged. How so?
I mean, will you tell me that today they are doing further testing in Tamale, where I tried to find out from people that were suspected to have the C19 who were tested one. I think that they have to test them again. The simple instruction was that, please, we cannot do the second testing. Just go on with your normal duties. And they are doing it. I mean, that is a shame. So they cannot even do the second testing, which is dangerous.
But you know, there's a new directive from WHO that government is implementing, right? But at this point, we have technology on our side. So let's take questions from the public, because that's what this show is all about. We were waiting for the stability of the technology. So let's go into our first batch of questions. Then we can have another round of responses to these questions. So this one from Sandra Wilson is via WhatsApp. It says, so really, what can these two parties do for Ghana when we don't even know what is in their manifestos? Apart from free SHS, what has the NPP achieved in their manifesto? Mahama too has not told us what he would do. NDC and NPP are a problem in the country. Edward Asifwai in Elmina says, my question goes to Mr. Samioku. During the NPP primaries, your party promised to ensure social distancing and wear face masks. But we saw many of your big people going to Mahama's UGMC for COVID treatment. As for your supporters, we don't know what has happened to them. So tell me what lesson you have learnt. I have another question from WhatsApp. Iyo Foreign team in Kumasi says, good evening, Sami and Joshua. What is the strategy in sending campaign messages to the rural folks in areas like Bofo Krom, Issa, Abdullahi Village, and Samso in Setre, Afram Plains, and all places where there is no electricity without physical presence of party bigwigs? So that's the first batch of questions via WhatsApp. And the first question is to you, Mr. Samioku, and then, of course, Mr. Akamba, is on the issue of manifesto and what exactly is the message that you are sending across to all of us.
So let me use just some few seconds to clear one or two issues. First of all, I think I saw on your byline that Carlos Anqua's decision to go for NPP primaries error of judgment. That wasn't what I said. But I could see that it was on your screen. I said his decision, after knowing his status, to go around and inspect these ongoing registration for me was an error of judgment.
Okay.
And that's in the eyes of other right-thinking Ghanaians as well. And it was based on that he tendered in his resignation letter. Again, I want to advise my brother and friend Akamba. For us as political parties, we are major stakeholders in this whole enterprise, especially in this registration, exhibition, and voting. And you and I do know that this whole COVID has come to stay. And in as much as possible, we need to constantly educate our supporters, our friends, our loved ones, and people we come into contact with. These things cannot be left just in the hands of the Electoral Commission. And that is why for us as political parties, for you in the media, and charity-based organizations, faith-based organizations, each and every one should get involved. Because if I contract the COVID, even at the marketplace, where there's no registration ongoing, I can take it to church. I can take it to a registration center. If you go to our marketplaces, sometimes it's sorry to state that not each and every one is observing the social distance. You have people wearing the mask. Now, instead of a face mask, it's become a chin mask, where people feel that, oh, I'm struggling to breathe. And what I keep telling people is, what is the alternative? The alternative is either you keep 6 feet apart in terms of social distancing, or it's 6 feet below. That is when you are buried. So it's important to choose that life over you saying that, oh, I'm finding it uncomfortable to breathe. Now, back to the questions. In 2016, the NPP, we did promise a lot. We promised renewed focus on agriculture. And that is what brought about this whole planting for food and jobs. And again, making Ghana now not an importer of what you have, the conglomerates, the plantain and all, but Ghana now becoming an exporter to even our neighboring countries. Again, not just free SHS, which is one of our major policy programs that we've implemented, even when we had some few challenges in the beginning. This is not a government that runs away from challenges. We believe that parties are voted into power to fix problems, and that's what we did. We stabilized the financial sector, where now, at least, you can confidently say that in as much as possible, you secure the funds of even deposited. Not each and every one will be happy. There will be some casualties. But if you look at the aggregate, government has done more in ensuring that at least we do these stuff. Again, let me go to the manufacturing sector. What are the indices saying? In 2018, we had the manufacturing sector growing at 9%. That was the highest that we've had. We're looking at the policy rate, and that we call the interest rate. Now, from the BOG, when the MPP in 2016, the policy rate at the central bank was around 25%, the second highest in Africa, apart from Namibia. Now we're talking about 14.5%. And then to the banks, to the commercial banks, it's now going for almost 20%, which for me is a major reduction from the 33% that we inherited. Someone will say, what does this mean? It means that if you took 100 cedis as a loan in 2016, when we're returning that figure, we're going to pay 133 cedis. Now, if you take 100 cedis as a loan from the bank, you're only going to return about 120 cedis. So businesses are able to now plan, and they're able to also get access to credit. Now, let me take you also a bit down to other indicators where we have our exchange rate, where under the NDC was depreciating in 2016 at 17% every month. Now under the MPP is roughly around 7%, 8%. I'm not saying that Ghana has become Paris.
The city has had its fair share of,
exactly,
under your administration.
exactly. But in February, for the avoidance of doubt, in February the city appreciated 4%. So if you say yes, of course it will fluctuate. But in February it gained 4%. All I'm saying is that the MPP has not turned Ghana into the United States or other Western countries. But I think on the balance of probability, and if you look at the figures on the table, we have performed better. And that's why we are pleading with the Ghanaian people. making a case for more to do more for the Ghanaian people.
Well, Mr. Akamba, that's Mr. Samuel Oku's response to the question. You'll come to the other questions because we'll come to that one because the first question was to Mr. Akamba as well, to both of you. So, Mr. Akamba, the question was also to you. What exactly is the message you're putting across in terms of why people should maintain you? That was the first question. What exactly is your manifesto saying? Do you even have one just yet?
I think that my brother Samuel Oku might not be listening to me from the studio because I spoke about how we should educate our people and that we will do our best, but that the EC has a stake in it. That's what I said earlier. So if you didn't listen, but I did say that we should find our party is a mass party. Our party, even in '92, was a party that started from the grassroots. And that is what I believe in. So we know how to handle our grassroots. And the MPP just started adopting and learning the processes that the NDC started long way before they started with their polling station. What do they call it? They have a name they call it. But we call it the branch executives that we have been running for so many years. And then the MPP has also joined in and they are doing it. So we will take charge. We are talking to our people. We are advising them on how to go to the place with a face mask, with a nose mask, and then the hand sanitizers to give it back. The EC, what I'm saying, when you even get there and they are crowded, you tell them to move. Sometimes
Mr. Akamba, you've made that point on the registration. Yes. So let's hit the questions that have come in so we can get responses quickly.
Let's now talk about the manifesto. We have just come out with a manifesto that is emanating from the grounds that we call the People's Manifesto. We have also given dates of when we'll be launching our manifesto. And I'm sure the questionnaire who just asked the question will get to know what is in the NDC manifesto soon. Obviously, a manifesto that is generated from within their own communities. And all of us will be glad at it, and we will. The MPP, we just rated them that with every promises that they did, with every promises they did in Ghana, I still think that they have delivered zero. They still have delivered zero. Why am I saying so? Even the free senior high is not succeeding. You and I will know that it's free senior high, but it's not. People still pay accommodation. People pay other bills. So there's no...
They pay accommodation?
Oh, yes, they do. Obviously.
Where?
Obviously, if my daughter, my ward is...
Where do they pay accommodation?
If my ward is placed in a school from the north to central region, what happens? Where we don't have the schools, where we don't have the dormitory, what happens? They pay hostels for them. I'm sure you and I know that is what is happening. So even the free, there's no free in it. Obviously, we are all going to descend to the grounds to talk to our people. We will know who will be telling the truth and who has been lying to Ghanaians. And so the truth will overshine light, and that's exactly what is going to happen.
Okay.
We will engage our party folks and Ghanaians at large. We are not only going to be talking to only the NDC. If you know, His Excellency the former president has started some engagement and is going very, very far. And so we will engage on that. And the other door-to-door campaign that we adopted even in before 2008 is what is going to be featuring in our campaign. And so, MFL, soon you will see us in your house trying to ask for your vote, to vote for the NDC.
In my house, okay. So, but the question really is, what is in the message from your point of view, from the NDC, the NPP? What exactly is your message? That was the question.
A message of hope, a message of giving us security, a message of giving us jobs, sustainable jobs that you'll be permanently fixed.
Okay.
So these are messages of infrastructure development and all that. This will come within your own communities. I'm sure that we would all get to see it.
Okay. So you said you'll be coming into my home, but you have not been able to tell me what measures you're putting in place such that I will be alive to vote for you if you come into my home. So you'll be thinking about that. We'll come to it. So there was a second question that also came to you directly on the lessons that you've learnt from what occurred at your party's primaries.
Yes, and then apart from that, how we're also going to disseminate information to
that's the third question.
The various. But interestingly, I think one thing that the NDC will also be struggling with in this particular campaign will be the track record they bring to the table. They left us with a nation in darkness. I do recall at the forecourt of multimedia, kids had to queue at night to come do their homework using your light. And then it gets to 11 p.m., then Joy FM will have to go off because they need to save some fuel for the next morning. Now we don't have that. I'm able to listen to Joy FM till the next morning. Again, you have students and parents who had to keep wailing anytime it was end of the month because the teacher training allowance, nursing training allowances had been cancelled. But the government that was bold and determined that, look, over its dead body, were they going to restore these? The MPP came because the NDC's position was that if they restored the teacher training and the nursing training allowances, it was going to collapse the economy. We have restored it and the economy is still running. We've ensured that, I'm sure numerous of it, the Vice President has outlined it, ensuring that now the nation has gone almost digital in every area of our application processes with the intention to do more and digitize the rest. Now back to the MPP's primaries, as you spoke about. For us as a party, we provided each and every constituency with Veronica bucket, hand sanitizers, and face masks. We're expecting in excess of over 104,000 people, 4,000 delegates, 104,000 delegate plus, to be at the various voting centers. And I can tell you on record that the MPP did make no less than 115,000 face masks and distributed it across our constituency.
So what lessons have you drawn from what happened? Because in spite of providing all this, people still did not adhere to it. The attitude of our people. This disease, the biggest mistake we can make will be to politicize or color this disease. I'm saying this because, MFA, you are a woman. Sometimes you take time to visit the market. Women do visit the markets more than the men do. And if you be candid with me, sometimes the visuals and what you see when you get there, you ask yourself, do these people really believe that there is the existence of this pandemic or this virus? And so it's just not a case about the MPP or the NDC. It's about the attitude of our people. And when I started making my point earlier, what I said was that traditionally it is difficult to change from something you are used to. We are not used to wearing face masks, but now progress demands that we need to wear it to save lives and to prevent the next person from getting it. Now, we've never had elections or registration where you have the registration officials wearing face masks. Yeah.
Today, you say it because we are in an extraordinary situation. And this wasn't caused by the Ghanaian people.
Well, just hold the thought there. Unfortunately, we have to go to the Accra Girls Senior High School.
Okay.
We've been told about some cases of COVID-19 recorded among students, and parents are trooping in there to withdraw the awards and take them back home. We know that final year students have been asked to go to school, and there's a case of COVID-19 recorded there. My colleague Maxwell Agbagba joins us live from the Accra Girls Senior High School here in Accra. Maxwell, what can you report from where you are?
Well, just about 30 seconds ago, a taxi just left the school compound, and in that taxi was a parent who came to carry her daughter away. And we are told that her child actually is asthmatic, and that's why she came here today to pick her belongings, her mattress, her other personal possessions that was put in the taxi, and the taxi just left this compound just about 30 seconds ago. Now, if you come here, what is happening right now within the Accra Girls School itself, prep is in session, so a lot of the students are in the classrooms, doing their own personal studies. We are told that because it's a weekend, the school authorities are not around, so it will be very difficult to get anyone to interact, with us. But we were lucky. We got one of the teachers here on this compound. He was seated just some meters away, and he told us that he cannot confirm or deny the reports out there that some students here have tested positive for the virus. And in fact, he said that even if it were true, if he confirms to us, I should just imagine the chaos that is likely to happen here. He said that some parents have already been to the school to take their children away, but he cannot confirm or deny that some students here have tested positive for the virus. We have been interacting with someone who works in the school. He lives about 100 meters away from a location that we don't want to put out there. You know, he tells us that yes, indeed, some of the students have tested positive for the virus. He confirms to us that sometime within the week, some of them were taken into isolation, and then some medical personnel were invited to take their samples. After the samples were taken, some days later, the results came in positive. And that as it stands now, 6 of them have tested positive, and they've been taken to an isolation center here in the Greater Accra region. He couldn't tell us exactly which of the isolation centers they have been taken to, but he told us that yes, indeed, some of the students in the school were taken into isolation in the school. Their samples were taken, and the results came in positive. He said 6 of them. But the school authorities here are not available to speak to that. A teacher we spoke to here said he cannot confirm or deny this report making the round. Some parents, 2 parents I met outside here who told me that they came here in the afternoon to pick their children to their homes, but they were not allowed to do so. They were raising concerns that the students were not tested before they were allowed to come back, to school. They are saying that they think that could have prevented the situation, that the school is not ready, to confirm or deny for us at this point. They say that we should come tomorrow and we'll get confirmation from the school authorities. So, if you come here, that is what is happening here at the Accra Girls Senior High School. That's
my colleague Maxwell Agbagba at the Accra Girls Senior High School. Last week we had cause to have that discussion here on Beyond the Lockdown, on education. We had Chas and the Chops, and then of course the Deputy Education Minister and some health experts right here on Beyond the Lockdown as the children went back to school, final year senior high school and then junior high school students as they prepare for their final year exam. So that's the situation at the Accra Girls. We'll get further confirmation on the situation there as parents are trooping there in an attempt to withdraw the awards for children from the school because of the COVID-19 fears, we're told, at the Accra Girls Senior High School. So back to the studios. You're still watching Beyond the Lockdown with me, MFR Power. I still have the organizers of the 2 main political parties, Samia Oku, in the studio. Also via Zoom, I have Joshua Hamidu Akamba. Of course, I also have the virologist, Dr. Michael Owusu, and of course, Dr. H.A. Sikanku also joining us. They will be coming in shortly again once we deal with the questions that have coming for the 2 organizers. So you were going into the third question that came about how you're going to be reaching the people at the grassroots and all as part of campaigning.
Well, MFA, Dr. H.A. was right about it's going to this year's campaign. I don't think it's a matter of a cult strategy, as Akamba wants us to believe that sharing how you're going to disseminate your information in this year's campaign has become like a cult or something that you need to keep within the bedroom. First of all, you need to reach out to people. Appearing on your set today is one of the means of reaching out to the Ghanaian voters. It's a big platform, mass media. Aside that, the issue of using the available social media tools to also reach out to people. But the texter was very clear that when you go to the remote villages,
there's no electricity.
They might not be hooked on to this internet connectivity and all. And that is why for us as a political party, everything that we want to disseminate, we have our regional structures, our constituency structures, our electoral area, and a polling station. Every village in Ghana falls within a certain locality, and where the MPP is represented via polling station, electoral area level, or constituency. So getting our messages to our people, we did that in 2016. And in fact, this year's campaign is not going to be, maybe it's going to be deeper than a retail campaign that we embarked upon in 2016. It's going to be more of a hawker campaign, person to person, talking to the people, and adhering and ensuring these strict health protocols. And I think that is very effective, but very difficult. That medium of campaigning involves a lot. We tried that in 2016. It brought us the needed results that we're looking for, and we are planning on sticking to a similar strategy. But in this instance, enhancing our appearance and visibility on the social media platform.
So what would you do if people want to hug you, for instance, like
people should understand.
Are you going to reject
occasionally people forget themselves. I mean, you have friends as well, even not just campaigning. Let's be real. Sometimes a family member forgets and will just put the hand around your neck and you go like, hey, social distance. It happens to you. So you keep on educating them. They themselves, they go like, oh, I forgot. So it's gradual. We are not used to this way of life. The typical Ghanaian hospitality of embracing the brother or checking up on the person, going to visit the person, this has affected our way of living. But I think that gradually we're going to get out of it. It's going to take time. But this year's campaign, as I told you, it's not going to be that exciting as we saw in the past with our mass rallies, our big rallies, then seeing our favorite artists performing, and energizing the base of your party. This time around, it's down to the wire, towards the politicians and the messengers to carry out.
And Dr. Eche has been talking about digital media, maybe virtual concerts as well.
I mean, I agree with him. I've known him for years, and then he's a solid guy.
Okay. Well, Mr. Kamba, this question was also to you as well, in terms of how you're going to be reaching the people who are out of reach, for instance, no electricity, no, phones, internet connectivity and all that one too is a strategy you don't want to share.
I think that even before then I have told you that we adopted a door-to-door campaign, and that is when I told you that soon you'll see me in your house. I'm sure some people couldn't hear that. So I have said that earlier on how we're going to go down there to the root. I have also spoken about how our party is a mass party. Our party started from the grassroots. I'm sure some people didn't get that. Now, what keeps bugging my mind is that when the MPP still will not realize that Ghanaians notice that they keep lying. What I thought that we were going to be doing was to talk to the people, obviously, to think, but I think there's a bit of politics in it. I would want you to kindly put this question to Samuel that ever since they came to power as the NPP government, how many megabytes have they added onto our electricity capacity? What have they done to enhance electricity in this country? And then, you talk about the COVID. I mean, if we actually want to speak about how the whole thing started, it was an importation by your own self. You imported into this country by His Excellency the President himself. And so if you today say that something that has come to stay, obviously you imported it and you brought it to us as Ghanaians. And so we are battling with it, and we are still trying hard to be able to manage out the situation. Okay. And if you agree with me, even before then, before even government made a move, His Excellency President Mahama had to start on how to save the lives of people, innocent Ghanaians. Before even the government, the whole government came in with all the heavy resources. President Mahama started with PPEs, where he took some to the hospital. If you remember, even in the Bono region, where a doctor, because he just simply made a donation of PPE, the doctor today has been removed as the chief director of that particular facility. So for us, as a political party, we will do our best with the interest of Ghanaians. When we're even talking about, let's be careful about the new voters register, was because of these things that we foresaw that these things would seriously start happening, because obviously government itself, with the Electoral Commission, with the Ministry of Health, had not put in any measures in place. That is how come that today they themselves are actually infecting us with this particular disease. And it's wrong. And we as a political party will do our best. A mass party, we've already started. And MFI, even when I was speaking to you, I said I was bringing you message from the rural areas. Is that right?
Yeah.
I was bringing you message from the rural areas. My brother Samuel Oku was talking to you from Accra. So I'm bringing you message from the rural area. So it means that I understand.
You know that for a fact that he hasn't been around too, right?
I don't know. What I'm saying is that I am bringing you message from the rural areas.
Okay.
Whatever he's talking about has to do with what is happening in Accra.
Okay.
And so even from the start, I started talking to you about the rural areas and what is happening in the rural areas and how we can go there to help resolve those issues. So I more think about them because that is where we think that the people need more help.
Okay.
Most people in Accra already have all the facilities to enjoy. Let's get to the rural areas, which we have started. His Excellency, the former President Mahama, the humble man himself, to cross via a canoe to some other rural communities. That's exactly what we understand doing. The end people would always learn from us. Don't be surprised that by tomorrow you see Samuel Oku on Facebook telling himself that he's in the rural areas soon. Obviously, we'll show the way and let them follow. They have not added one. They have done nothing. Even Dr. Bamian did admit that President Mahama should not. My brother Samuel Oku did also made a certain point that I disagree with him. He said, listen, we can restore nursing training allowances. And if I was tomorrow, just call a nursing student and find out how much do they pay for their fees today. Just find out from the nursing student. So it is this is a point of giving. I didn't want to do politics with this because I thought that this was something, but since he has decided to do the politics aspect of it, I think that is the way that we are all have to do.
It was a question. It was a question that came for both of you about what message you are selling. So once we are done with that, I think we should come back to the topic of campaigning amid the pandemic.
Even if the question came, we should find a way to handle the question rather than trying to play that dirty politics with it. Obviously, and I will answer. You know that I will not sit down for him to get away with it. I will answer. Go get the message. Find out from this message. How much is their school fees today?
Okay.
And previously, how much were they taking? And find out from them, those that have completed school, whether they have jobs doing. Just go there. Then now got back to the teacher's training. Today, when I was on my way coming, I passed through Techima. In the community, in the Zongo community, where I went to meet some chiefs. Believe me, MFA, we have one of these E-blocks sitting there and rotting. The MPP is there telling us that they are doing something in the Zongo community.
Okay.
What?
Let me just come in quickly. I'm sure Akamba wanted to talk about megawatt.
Yes.
We
all know
not megabytes.
Because megawatts.
Electricity is not measured in bytes. This is not data. This is electricity. So I don't think I want to go on that argument with him since he doesn't even know what he really wants to talk about. If he wants to talk about bundle or he wants to talk about electricity. If it's electricity, we can have a conversation in the megawatts. If it's talking about data, we can have a discussion.
But he mentioned electricity, so
you know
he's talking about
understand the component he wants to address. And then
so he's asking how many megawatts you've added.
And that's what I'm saying. That doesn't even understand what he wants to talk about. For the MPP, in terms of electricity penetration, I think that for us as a government, we've done well. And we've connected many more communities to the national grid. I will not be able to speculate and give you a figure.
So he's asking for percentages,
yes,
exactly how many?
He doesn't really understand the context he wants to put it. But I am surprised that MFI, you didn't also address a very serious allegation that he made that the president and the government imported the coronavirus into the country. I think that was an unfair comment. And then maybe you forgot, or maybe you might have glossed over it, but it's a very serious statement for him to say that the president of the country and the government imported this deadly novel virus into our country. I don't think we should encourage such talk on a very serious platform. Because first there was this allegation, government officials and all those who were on the trip with the president were lined up to test. So if you still have the chief mobilizer of the largest opposition party making such a comment, I would have said it's pedestrian, but I think it's not respectful enough on a national platform. Well,
is that a comment you will still stand by? Are you willing to take back that comment, Mr. Akamba, so we can move forward? Ebefa,
if you, at the time that we have problems out there, I'm sure that there was an envoy that was part of the trip. Is that right?
I'm asking you a specific question.
No, can I? Is that right? Well, am I right to say that?
That the president imported it? Is that what you're saying?
When the whole thing started serious was when they got back. You understand? So that's why I'm saying that we should be careful playing politics. Samuel Oku seated there, actually did say that we play politics with C19. He said that. He said it was something that he will enjoy doing. And the media houses captured it. Is he ready to take it back?
So you're not taking back that comment. Let's be sure on that. You're sticking by the comment that the president and his entourage imported COVID-19 into the country. You know that for a fact.
What I believe is that it was when they returned that we started getting the seriousness of this disease. That's what I believe. That's my belief.
That's your belief.
That's my belief.
Well, he thinks that that's a pedestrian comment that you're making. I'm sure those watching you also may agree. But Dr. Michael Owusu, is that something that is backed by the science? Do we know for a fact that that's what happened?
From a virologist perspective, I want to show and then a virus and how a virus came into the country. You first of all have to look at all the positive samples. You have to extract their nucleic material. You have to plot the dynamism and flow of transmission of the virus, and then locate this to the individuals, to their databases. That is the only way you can show. So we have what we call a phylograph that can show transmission pathway. I mean, Gucci, you heard earlier on, we're able to show where we had our imported viruses from. So when you assemble all the viral sequences in Ghana and you plot the phylograph, that is the only way you can show who first brought the virus in and who gave to what and who did what. As we speak now, we have not gotten to the stage yet to know who first brought it in and how the virus flew occurred. So I think that from my perspective, I've not seen that data yet, and I wouldn't be able to say that this person or that person, but I think that the evidence to back this, we are yet to do that. Okay, so
Mr. Akama, you've heard the science of it. So that comment you've made, you still want to stand by it? I would wish that you withdraw it so we can move forward, because you don't have evidence to back that.
Obviously, I would ask the doctor that we should actually do that testing for us.
But until that is done, Mr. Akamba, so that we don't drag too much.
Excuse me, and if you would agree with me that the borders were actually locked down because that we believe that this thing was important. Is that right?
Well, Mr. Akamba, I'm not about to engage you on that. If you would want to stick by it, we leave that to the judgment of those watching us at this point. I would have to move on. And then there are some more questions that are coming in. But Dr. Sikanku, I would come to you quickly. You've heard both sides on how they are hoping to penetrate to the supporters and sell their messages to them. Issues about social media, campaign-specific mobile apps, and then paid advertising on social media, for instance. Knowing interconnectivity and the internet that we have as a country, how do you hope that they should do it? I'm sure this will be free consultation to the various political parties.
Thank you very much for your question, MFR. And I've been following the discussion with my fellow guests as well. And yeah, sure, there's going to be that disparity in terms of internet connectivity. And we all know the literature on diffusion and also on the disparities when it comes to the digital divide, the divide between the global south and the global north. But even if you come to Ghana, the divide, or African countries, the divide between the rural and the urban areas, the low level of digital penetration, and how that really prevents certain demographics from participating within the political sphere or within other spheres of life. The cost of data, for instance, and all of that. So yes, that is definitely a very fair concern because of the disparities, particularly for people in the rural areas. And it is very important that that is taken into consideration for both parties as we go. My premise at the beginning was that the political campaigns are so central, right? Are so central and integral to our democracy. And what they do out there is very important for people to be very well educated. If you look at this from a political campaign perspective, there are certain principles that underlie campaigning or democratic campaigning. I'll mention just three of them: competitiveness, equality, and then deliberation. Competitiveness means that the opportunity must be there for multi-party politics, for people to compete equally, for the political parties to sell their positions, and for the voters to be free to choose which of them they want. There's also the idea about equality, that nobody should have undue influence or undue power over the other, right? So we do expect that those opportunities will be given, that the incumbents will not take advantage of it. Also that would engage for the position, and also book the incumbent that will engage in a politics of issues rather than personalities as well. That we watch our language too. And then deliberation. Deliberation is the other principle of political campaigning, which means that there should be that deliberative or dialogic or feedback component where we hear from the citizens as well. After all, we are here to serve the citizens. And that is where the news media has a role to play, that we give equal time to the various political parties, that we give equal access to them, that we are being fair, objective in the opportunities that we give or in our reportage, so that we have a campaign which is very substantive. Language is also a very important issue, the kind of language that we use, that we avoid the negative language, we avoid the insult, the sensationalism as well. But if you come to the hardcore political campaign, there's always the virtual rallies that we can use. We also have the virtual town halls that they could do. We also have the text messaging that they could use. There's the YouTube town hall, there's a Twitter town hall that they can use. There are also mobile vans that they could use. And then, of course, the mainstream media, as well, the traditional media, could be used in place of some of these strategies or these kind of structures that we have. So basically what I'm saying is that the campaign should advance the values of democracy. And that they should also make sure that even those in the rural areas are having that opportunity to participate in the political space. So several things that can be done. We know that even fundraising can be done virtually through teleconferencing to raise a lot of funds. And this is where we can see the grassroots even contributing to the campaign as well. So there's just a whole lot that can be done, and we do hope that
you have to keep the rest so they come see you and pay for it, and then you can give them more of that consultation on that. But it's a good time to take the final batch of questions that we have for the national organizers of the two main political parties. We're ready. Let's go through the final batch of questions. It's still on WhatsApp, and this one says, I have said that many shall gather and disregard social distancing to register, but few shall live to vote. The organizers should tell us the plans they have so that Ghanaians are not sacrificed for elections and political power. So I will stay on WhatsApp, and if I ask Samioku what else the NPP will be telling us when they have not fulfilled many of the promises, ask him when all the SHS schools will get new free Wi-Fi as promised in the 2016 manifesto. So this one is saying, what is their assessment of the voter registration exercise? I think I got ahead of you. That was the very first question I posed to both organizers. So I'll issue a warning at this time. I have just about 9 minutes for us to go, and that includes answering these questions, and then we'll take our final, round of, final address before we wrap up this show, even though the time is so small. But Ghanaians, the first question is to both of you at this point. So,
I'm sure we'll take a question by question. I think we've been hammering on these matters, that education. We are in an extraordinary situation, and the new normal requires that we need to wash our hands with soap under running water. We need to ensure that at all times we wear our face masks. And again, when we are standing next to someone or sitting close to someone, we need to ensure social distancing. Doing this does not completely eliminate the risk of infection. We need to understand it. It reduces the risk. And so we are going more with risk reduction. That's all over the world. That's what countries are doing now. Because the risk avoidance, it does mean that you're only staying in your beds and you are not moving. So what political parties can do at this point is to encourage our supporters, our sympathizers, our executives across the country, and also people who lean towards us or who tune in to listen to us as politicians and speakers, that these are things that we need to do to protect lives, especially during this registration. Even though we've answered it, as you said, the first question, we need to hammer on that education. And MFA, just a second. I always carry quite a number of face masks in my vehicle. I've been to several centers. Unfortunately, before you leave your home, you should have a face mask, according to the new EI. But where you have someone saying, oh, I forgot, and it's just next to the center, if you are there, you have more than one, and it's new and it hasn't been used, pass it on to your brother or your sister. I also carry hand sanitizer. It's not just me. I'm saying that it's a shared responsibility. And that's one thing that I want my colleague to understand, that it's a shared responsibility.
So the issue about Wi-Fi, quickly, that part,
I disagree with the texter who said we haven't fulfilled many of our promises. We have fulfilled a significant
So he's asking
number.
about a specific one.
If the person is making a specific request, wait for when we would launch our manifesto. And I can tell you
we have free Wi-Fi in senior high schools.
I can tell you confidently that we have great plans for this Wi-Fi for even our tertiary and our senior high as well.
So as we speak, it hasn't been done, has it?
What hasn't been done?
Wi-Fi for free Wi-Fi for senior high schools.
I think we've made some progress and some penetration in some schools as well. But for us as a government, we don't want to be discriminatory.
Do you know one school, for instance?
You launch it when it's across board.
Do you know one school, for instance?
Not exactly.
Okay.
But I do know that speaking to the comms minister, that's the communications minister, and that of governance machinery, there are elaborate plans in terms of helping secure these our senior high schools and our tertiary, and supporting them with the free internet as well.
Well, Mr. Akamba, so this question, I'm sure you've also touched on it, making sure that Ghanaians survive to vote for you, measures that you're putting in place to ensure that we are safe so that we can vote for you in 2020.
I think that I would want to use this opportunity to plead with your outfit and other media houses that are affiliated with other rural radio stations to send messages in even the local languages, in even the local languages, educating our people. In this time, I think that what the EC should have done was to contact you people. But I would plead that even if you are not lawyer, but pro bono or for free, if you can do that for us, it will help our rural folks. So that we can send this information to the rural folks. Fortunately, my brother Samuel Uku had never been able to answer one thing when he said, oh, in some rural areas, we're able to send electricity there. He's not been able to answer to that.
Okay.
The questioner is asking, you promised to give us internet, free internet in our school. Have you done that? Yes, you did. Where?
So he's answered that. He's answered that question. I have taken care of that. So let me finally ask you, Mr. Akamba. You are preparing for a NEC meeting tomorrow. I can't have you without asking you about that. So we are hoping that at the end of that NEC meeting tomorrow, there will be an announcement of who the running mate will be to the former president, John Mahama. Tell us about it.
Oh, I mean, I know that I have been campaigning for you. So don't be surprised that...
You've been campaigning for who?
For you to become our running mate.
Of course. Of course, you know
don't be surprised
that's not the case. Is it Dr. Kwabena Dufo?
I said, don't be surprised that at the end of the day, your name might come up because you would have been my preferred candidate. But whoever comes...
Is it Kwame Ewadako?
I'm saying that is a sole responsibility of the flag bearer of our party. And why we have been called for the next meeting tomorrow, for him to consult us and tell us. So I'm unable to tell you who until we meet, but I would want to put you up if you are interested.
I'm not interested. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the national organizer of the NDC, Mr. Joshua Akamba. I don't know why I keep on calling him doctor because I have the biologist.
He's Captain Joshua Akamba. He's captain of Salvation Army and not from the military. But let me even go to the substantive point. They have NEC tomorrow.
Well, I'd have to go to the doctor so quickly.
No, just quickly. Yes. I don't. The flag bearer I understand. I mean, for us in the MPP, anybody that they choose, just as Dr. Baumia said.
So what names have come up in your camp?
If the number one is not competent, don't expect the number two to perform better. However, I don't think that the man will be sending 3 names there.
Why?
He'll be only sending a name in consultation with the NEC.
Which name is it?
And we have our antenna. But the honest truth is that we don't expect anything to change. The value should be the same. Whoever he chooses might not do any significant addition to the NDC's equation.
Mr. Peter McMahon is not well. Is it affecting the campaign plan?
He's doing well now.
He's fine?
He's fine. And then I always shy away from discussing people's medical records. But I can confidently tell you that our campaign manager 2020 is doing well. And as human, this COVID and whatever it is, it could be malaria, it could be cholera, it could be anything. And everybody is susceptible to it. But he's doing very well.
Okay.
And,
thank you. Thank you so much. I have just a minute to go. And that's it for tonight's edition of Beyond the Lockdown. I'm sure that we'll definitely be back on this. And that's it. Let me, Mr. Samuel Uku, the national organizer of the NPP, also Joshua Hamidu Akamba is the national organizer of the NDC. We also have Dr. Michael Owusu, who is a virologist at the KCC, and of course, Dr. H.A.C. Kanku, a specialist. And earlier it started with stay at home, then it says go out and register. I leave you with that. On behalf of the entire team, thank you so much for being a part.